No, I think overall flying isn't that fancy anymore. But I think we have to see what made this possible is that the prices have come down considerably. If you look like 30 years ago, you couldn't go to London for a weekend because you wanted to see a concert or you wanted to go shopping on Regent Street. It just was not possible because it was much too expensive.
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. Today's guest is a man who likes the same things that I do. I think, as far as I have read, we haven't spoken much yet, but he likes planes, and I could live on a plane or at an airport for that matter. He is the founder and publisher of aeroTELEGRAPH, and we're going to find out more about what that is. It's, from what I read, it's the largest German-speaking media outlet, aviation media outlet. He is also the author of the book, The Art of the Airport, again, connected to airport. Welcome to Most Memorable Journeys, Stefan Eiselin.
Thanks for having me.
It's really great that you are taking the time because I know that you are a busy man, and I want to give a shout out to Noemi Frischknecht who connected us. She was on this podcast twice already. She is a Swiss flight attendant, ex-lawyer, and she knew that we may be a match.
That's good. Yes, of course.
So, Stefan, I have a question. I read in all the stuff that I read that one night you couldn't sleep as a 10-year-old because of the beauty of a DC-10. What is that? I mean, I know what a DC-10 is, but what happened?
No, it's not that, it's not in a strange way, but that was really like this because my parents took me to travels from a very early age on. This was actually the second time I was traveling long haul when I was 10 years old. We traveled to India, and somehow I had this image of this plane. You get on the plane and there's the skin on the fuselage. You see the rivets. You see this white thing in front of you, this metal thing. And this is somehow, I was so nervous to get onto this plane again that I really couldn't sleep for a night, which was then a problem for my parents afterwards because I fell asleep once I arrived.
So they couldn't do anything with you.
No, exactly.
But did this fascinate, because you started off as a journalist, not specialized in aviation?
No, not at all. I studied business administration and economics at the University of Zurich. Like everybody that does that, at a certain point, you start to ask, why am I doing this? What am I going to do with the rest of my life, with the knowledge I have? One of the things that springs into mind usually is I could go into consulting. But then at a certain point, I just had like an epiphany, and it came to me, no, it's not. I wouldn't be good at it, and it's not what I want to do. And then somebody just gave me an ad for a job. These used to be still in the printed
I
job
remember
ad.
that.
Exactly. And he cut it out and sent it to me. And it was for a post of a junior journalist at a financial newspaper. And I applied and I got the job. I have to mention that before I was working during my studies as a journalist already for local newspapers. Several local newspapers, most of them don't exist anymore, but where I learned how to write, how you do stories. I learned, like from very boring church meetings, opening of very small shops, to stuff that was a bit more interesting, but you had to do everything as a local correspondent. And that's how I got into journalism. And then when I saw this job opening and I got accepted, I was really happy to start as a business journalist. Even I didn't know much about the stock exchange and interest rates and all that. That was for me very interesting. And it was a completely new world. And I could use the fun I had in writing. And I would say also it was one of the talents I had to grasp something very fast and also then be able to reproduce this in a written manner that people understand what I'm talking about. I could use this also. So, and then I did a very traditional career. I worked for some years at one newspaper, then I changed. I had changed again. Then I became the head of the business section of a large daily in Switzerland, Tages-Anzeiger. I moved on to another position, became the deputy editor-in-chief of Handelszeitung, which is a business paper, a weekly or bi-weekly. But there was a certain point where I saw that I'm still too young to retire, but also this industry, the media industry is in a big crisis, for 10, 15, 20 years now, the revenues go down. Mostly the management, what they do is they cut costs. And that's not really interesting from the point of view of the employees. And also if you're a manager in this environment, it's not very interesting. I had to let people go. I had to cut the budget several times, and it got boring. Then at a certain moment, I met a colleague, and we started to talk, and we found out that we like planes, both of us. And I always had the perception that readers are interested in aviation. But mostly, the most products that were around at that time, they were made for professionals. Usually it's aviation geeks that started to write about aviation. And we want to do a product which comes from the opposite side. Journalists, mostly business journalists who start to write about aviation. So I was not a geek, I was never a plane spotter or something. But it was something that always interested me. Also because
during the time, I'm going to interrupt you here for a moment. During the time that you were doing this normal job, this normal journalism, were you interested in traveling? Were you traveling?
Traveling was always, as I mentioned before, travel for me was always part of my almost DNA, because my parents took me, the first time they took me to India, Nepal, was when I was 70 years old. And from then on, they took me to Africa, to Asia, to places. And I'm really grateful about that, because the one thing is to travel, to see the beauty of travel, to see the beauty of the world. That was one thing. And the other thing is, it also shows you that the world is diverse. People live differently. They have different opinions. And you don't have to do all the things like how it should be done. Sometimes there are other ways. You learn to open up, you learn to see different things. And that for me was that was an eye-opener, and it stayed with me. I travel all the time. I not only on business, but also with my family now we travel. And I did the same with my kids. We took them for faraway places quite early on. And I think I have the feeling that they will do the same.
Mm-hmm. How old are they?
They are now almost 20 and almost 16.
Yes, because I made sure I was always a travel addict and a tour guide and a conference interpreter. And I made sure that my kids like traveling, and travel they do, I tell you.
That's good. No,
Yes,
I
definitely.
think traveling is very important for the world. You know, if we stay at our place, first of all, for me, it's boring.
Mhm.
But also, it's like I said before, right? It opens up minds. You know, you get to challenge yourself sometimes because you also get difficult situations, and sometimes it's hard because the smells are different. Sometimes for us, how to bear the noise is different. The perception of time is different, but that I think in the end makes you more how would I say, not a better person, but I think it makes you more understanding
And
as
more
a person.
tolerant. I think
More tolerant,
the
exactly, yes.
main word. Yes, I think. And also, you were saying, I mean, yes, people do live differently and people have different lifestyles and they do things differently. But at the end of the day, we still all have kind of the same need. We just want to be safe.
Yes, we want to be safe. We want to be loved. We want to have friends. We want to have our peace in our life.
Yeah.
And
And I think that's everybody wants that.
exactly, exactly. And we want to laugh. We want to do sometimes crazy things, sometimes stupid things, and we want to be able to express ourselves, to be heard, and that's very important. Exactly, that's what I've seen everywhere.
So now I rudely interrupted you before when you were just getting to the point, because you said you met your colleague and you started realizing that you both like planes. And then what happened?
Yes, then we just started actually. We just started without business plan. We started out and put a website on the internet, which is actually quite easy. The hard part follows afterwards when you have to fill the blanks, and
Content.
start to write the content. Of course, that first we had our jobs on the side and we started writing in the evening on the weekends. And then more and more, we got more into the news cycle, which is tough because, it never stops. I think I would say this is also the biggest disadvantage of my job is that it never stops. If something happens, you have to be there. Because you build up an audience and they expect something from you. And if you fail there, you can fail once or twice, but not all the time. So this is something that makes it difficult.
And it's 24/7. I mean,
It's 24/7,
the world never sleep. There's some people don't sleep while you are supposed to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And there's always, I remember, for a few years, there was always a plane crash around Christmas, like basically like always after Christmas or before in Africa or Asia or Russia, but there was something happening, and this showcases that it's never, the news cycle doesn't stop when you stop.
No, that is very true. Where do you get all your stuff from? Where do you get all your information from? How do you find these stories?
There's several ways, there's like the very simple classic way that companies announce something which is interesting to us, which we find interesting. That's one thing. Then we, of course, with the years, as I said, we started out as a part-time and slowly we went into full-time, being able to sustain ourselves nowadays. So with this time, we built up also a network of relationships with people in this industry. That's important too. Sometimes you hear something which is interesting and you think it's a story, then you can start from that. Sometimes you have people giving us information because they have heard something, sometimes because they find it interesting themselves, sometimes because they are not happy with what's happening in their company. Also, we scan news around the world because the world is a big place, as we know from traveling. When I turned 50, for me, one of the things I thought, I'm not going to make it to all the places I want to go. So it is a big place, and there is lots of things happening in this big place. So we scan the newspapers all over the world, and these are mostly the sources we have. But the thing is also, we now have a team of 4 full-time journalists, and they all have their special skills, and they know their special sources, and that's how we do that. So everybody brings different ideas into our product.
And I think, like in everything to do with, well, everywhere, but especially in what you do, or it's all about networking. It's knowing, having somebody to call when you hear something, somebody to ask, a source that you can call, that you have a good relationship with.
Exactly. It's networking is very important, because not only for that, but also you have to build up your reputation, that people trust you when they tell you something and they say it's off the record, that you don't use it, for instance, or they know when they give you some information that you will use it in a correct way. And this is very important. Also, for me, I mean, sometimes it's difficult because people change in their positions, and you build up something and you lose it again. But by the time you know how people are, you can trust them, you know how they work. And that's very important, that we can be open about, we often have different roles, people which we communicate with. Sometimes we want to know something and they don't want to tell it. So you have to find a way how we write it, and for that you need trust.
Yeah, of course. And you mustn't misuse the trust. That is very important.
Yes,
Otherwise, I'm never going to tell you anything again.
Yeah, exactly. That's you do that once, then it's over.
Now, let's talk a little bit about flying, because while I was preparing for this, I read, and I don't know if it's still accurate, but it said that 750,000 people at any time are in a plane. Is that still accurate?
I don't know the exact figure right now, because also after pandemic, it has changed a bit. I cannot tell you, but it's a large figure. It's like thousands and thousands of planes are in the air right now as we speak.
Yes, because the 750,000 is 3/4 of the population of Cyprus.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, it's a lot of planes in the air. And people never realize that. I mean, flying is getting more popular in many places. I know Brazil quite well, and it's a country that's so vast. You have the bus, but the bus for many journeys takes 24, 48 hours. So flying is also a way for people to move within a country, especially many of these countries which are getting a bigger middle class. They produce more and more people, or more and more passengers. That's what's happening right now. We see that in all corners of the world. It's happening in Africa. It's happening in South America. It's happening in China on a big scale. But also in Southeast Asia, we have more and more people who can afford to travel by plane. And I mean, it's a fantastic people mover, because it's fast, has quite a high capacity, and it can go to many places. Not all the places, but it can go to many places.
What is your opinion or your take on low-cost carriers? Because I come from this generation when we used to fly on good old Swiss Air, when we all... And as a tour guide, I very often got upgraded in business class. So I was very spoiled, not just Swiss Air, but many places. And then suddenly all these low-cost carriers came, and, it wasn't as fancy anymore as it used to be.
No, I think... overall, flying isn't that fancy anymore. But I think we have to see what made this possible is that the prices have come down considerably. If you look like 30 years ago, you couldn't go to London for a weekend because you wanted to see a concert or you wanted to go shopping on Regent Street. It just was not possible because it was much too expensive. Flying has been a privilege for a certain part of the society. And I very much like that it's not like this anymore. But of course, I mean, everybody, we would like to pay 100 euros for our ticket and still be traveling first class, but it's just not possible. So I think this democratization of flying is a very good thing because, we touched this before. Seeing different cultures, seeing different countries is a very important thing, especially in these crazy times and sad times we are in right now with many, many horrible things happening.
And I believe that traveling also can lower racism because racism is fear of the unknown, in my opinion. And when you get to know the unknown, that thing goes away.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly. I mean, if you see, like we said before, like these people want the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, they want the same thing. If it's people in India, if it's people in Bangladesh, if it's people in Zambia or people in Paraguay, they all want the same. If you get to see that and if you get to know them and maybe you laugh with them or you just exchange a smile or something, that helps also combating racism. I very much agree.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite airline?
For me, it's not. Basically, I mean, I'm based here in Zurich. That's where I live. So for me, the choice is often Swiss, which I find a good airline. And there are some other good airlines. I flew once JetBlue transatlantic. I thought it was a very good product. Of course, Qatar Airways, everybody agrees basically they have very good service. Many of the Gulf carriers, Etihad, but I like very much Air France also because probably it's also the charm, the French charm, but the details they have, the service. But in the end, I just love flying. I just love flying. It's for me something that I'm still looking forward to it each time.
Yeah, I have exactly the same feeling, and it really doesn't matter what it is as long as I get to the end safe. And I always, for me, going to the airport is excitement after I don't know how many, probably thousands of flights, but it's just the beauty. Traveling is beautiful. Now, let's get to the book, The Art of the Airport. How did that come about? Do you like airports? Do you like airports like I do?
I like them very much. Of course, we all hate sometimes if there is big lines at the security control, if there is big lines at the customs control. But in the end, I like the feeling that we have when you come to the airport. I think it starts already if you have arrived there. It's like you're in a different world because there's already people from all over the world. And you can see that mostly those people, they're excited because they go someplace. And they go on holiday, they go on business, they go to visit family. So they're excited. Some people are nervous, some people are anxious, some people are very happy, some people are really a little bit over the top because they're so excited. But I like this place. I like the international touch that an airport brings. So for me, it's a really it's a nice place, and I like sitting also at a lounge, at a bar at the airport, and just look at the people, look at the planes. That's something I still like. Yeah.
Yeah, and looking at them and wondering what their story is, where they are going and why they are going, and yeah, I think that's
exactly. Yeah, and you always need nice people. It's also for me going back to why I became an aviation journalist. Is one big difference for me is that I used to write mostly about banks and insurance companies before and the stock market. One big difference is people who work in aviation, they like what they do. It's not, you don't get rich usually if you work in aviation. It's, you do it because you like it, and you feel that. Usually people who work at the airport, they have a certain, they are proud and they love what they do. I always like that. My mother used to work at the airport for Lufthansa for quite some time, and probably this was also something that influenced me. That I always have this, it's like a special circle, the people that work in aviation.
This is true. And I'll tell you a little story. Normally, I don't tell stories. I'm supposed to be asking the questions. When I was young, when I was 19, I had done a CAFA, a commercial apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And I went to Geneva to work for an American company because I wanted to improve my English and my French. And I hadn't traveled much. I was a girl from the Swiss mountains. And I used to take the bus to Geneva airport and just sit there and have a coffee and look. and exactly what you were saying before, just enjoy this feeling of internationality and dreaming.
Yeah, it's dreaming, it's internationality, and it's also, like I said, it's people who make this possible without the biggest pay.
Yeah. You're totally right. Now, The Art of the Airport, the book, how did it start? Why did you do that?
We did it because the publisher, he was a German publisher who asked us. They had lots of architectural books, but they missed one in the field of the airport. So they asked us if we want to do that together with one of their authors, which comes from the architectural side. And it was a project Laura, from my business partner, and me, we said yes from the start because we liked it. And as we discussed before, we like airports. And there are some astonishing airports in the world. It's not only the biggest, but also some are very beautiful from the architectural side. Some are or interesting from the way how they are composed or designed. And that's when this publishing company asked us. We did it right away. And first there was the German version, and then there was an English translation, which came out in a British publishing house later on.
Do you have a favorite airport?
I like many airports. To be honest, it's airports I'm somehow connected with. I like to go to travel. I like very much the city airport of Rio de Janeiro, the Santos Dumont, because it's right in the city. And when you take off there, you see Sugarloaf Mountain from your window, and it's just a breathtaking takeoff. It's the landing is as breathtaking because it's right in the city. You have the mountains, you have the bay there, you see the ships, you see the traffic, you have helicopters, you have skyscrapers. It's just breathtaking. That's one airport I like. There is many which I like, but it's not that I go there often. I also like Kathmandu Airport, which is not a beautiful airport, but it's just for me, it's because I've been there so many times. I like the feeling, I like the smell, I like the chaos. It's just, this is more from the heart, not from the quality of the airport perspective. But there is many small airports. I've once been to probably heard of it, Barra Airport in Scotland. This is the airport which is actually a beach. You can only
No,
land,
I've
and
never
it's
heard of that.
okay. It's on a small island in the Outer Hebrides, and it serves the island of Barra, and it's only in operation when it's low tide, because then the planes land on the sand, and it was just a fantastic experience there, and also a very nice island with very nice people. So this is also a place I like, but it's not that I have one airport that I really like. I like airports to transfer. Sometimes I like some better than others, um, but it's not that there's some I really think wow, but some are better than others. But mostly I like the airports. I have a connection to them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the feeling and the purpose, isn't it?
Yes,
And where
exactly.
you're going. Yeah, that's right. I just recently stopped over in Doha. And that is a fascinating airport. I mean,
Yes.
my God, it's like a huge, massive 5 stars hotel.
Yeah, and it's efficient. You have space.
Yeah.
It's like recently also I've been to Abu Dhabi where they opened a new airport, and it's very impressive what they have done. It's also in Europe or the US, it's very difficult to do something like this anymore because we don't have the space.
Yeah.
Istanbul is also one of these airports. They just have space. You can transfer there, and you have space.
Yeah.
Many airports are crammed, and
Um,
that's
very true. And there is more and more people traveling all the time. So
yes,
that
exactly.
So, Stefan, we're already far in. I just want to hear from you. What's the future of aviation? Are there going to be faster planes? Is the Concorde going to come back? What do you think? Will people travel more and more and more?
Yeah, I think people will travel more and more. That's for sure, because people want to travel. We've seen that. We had the pandemic. Many people said there will be much less business traffic. It's still true, but also business traffic came back much faster than many people thought. Also for the reason, like we said before, also people want to look each other in the eyes. You need a gut feeling sometimes if your partner is really what he says he is. Sometimes you need to feel that. But also people want to travel. They want to go around. They want to meet. Thank God, they want to see other cultures, other countries, because it's possible. It's affordable nowadays, and that's why people travel more and more. Then also we have the effects we touched before, that many people get richer. There's a middle class in many countries which is evolving and appearing, and those people want to fly too. They want to go on a vacation too. They want to travel by plane in 2 hours instead of bus for 36 hours. And so flying will be around because it's just such an efficient way of traveling. Boats, ships are interesting too, but they are very, very slow. Trains are fun. They're good for certain distances, but you just cannot cross the oceans. Cars, same thing.
Yeah.
All serve their specific purpose, but in the end, for travel between continents, large distances, and you have a limited amount of time, you just need planes. And I think a lot so people will travel, passenger numbers will grow, they will grow still with big numbers. But there is some challenges and things happening. One of the biggest challenges is the climate problem or emergency we have. I think everybody who can read has to acknowledge that when he reads the studies of the experts. We have to do something against climate change. aviation is one of the pollutants. It's not the worst, but it's one. And there is something happening. The industry is changing, but it takes time. So we will see solutions there. There will be electric flying, and I'm pretty sure for short haul, maybe a bit smaller planes, which have a smaller capacity but fly more often for shorter routes. There will be hydrogen planes for certain routes. And there will be different solutions for the fuel, which are less pollutant or less climate intensive, like the sustainable aviation fuel. So there's a lot happening there. The return of the Concorde, there's many companies which are studying that right now. They're looking at that again. I think that there's probably a market for certain people who need to go somewhere very fast, like you can go to New York in the morning and return in the evening. But first, also there, the climate problem has to be solved. And it's even more urgent with these planes because they use more fuel, so you have to have a solution there which is cleaner. And also, I think this is more like a niche market. It won't be the big market. And let's face it, I mean, of course, some places are far, but from Europe, we can get to New Zealand, which is about as far as you can go in less than a day. It's possible. And I think with that, we can be very happy.
That is all excellent. You forgot to say one thing. Flying is the safest way of transportation.
People always forget it. It's also lots of people are afraid. My wife is scared of flying, which makes sometimes difficult for me because I want to go to many places. She says, why can't we stay somewhere closer? The good thing is that she lets me go. If I want to go, I can go on my own. And it's hard to get by because people, it's not a rational fear because you have the numbers, and then the numbers show you that. I don't recall it by heart now, but you have to live for thousands of years.
19,000 years. I do fear of flying hypnosis. I tell you.
Okay. 19,000 years. You have
every day.
Every day.
Yes.
Every day.
Yes.
Until you are in an accident with deadly circumstances. So it makes no sense, but it's still people are afraid. But in the end, we said 10,000 planes are at the same time in the air. And yes, there are things happening, but in the end, it's very, very little. And the accident rates have come down. Even, I mean, nowadays we have to see also the smallest incident, there's people on board who record it. And it's on
online.
Media.
Yes.
Exactly. So this is a big difference. Before, we just didn't know that this was happening. And so there is lots of planes in the run, and it's nothing happening. In the last 20, 30, 40 years, the accident rate with especially the fatal accidents have come down very, very fast.
Very true. The problem is that people lose control. They have no control. This is the fear. This is where most of the fear comes from. This is what I have learned with the people that I work with.
Yes, it is that, which I find somehow interesting, because if you're in a train and you have ever seen a picture of a train crash where you see all the carriages, somehow it looks horrible, and you have absolutely no control in the train because you cannot jump off a train that runs with the 200 kilometers per hour. Same thing is with the boat. I did, for the first time in my life, I did a 3-week cruise in the South Atlantic last year. I was often standing on the outside on the deck of this boat, and I thought at this very moment, there is like 6,000 kilometers below us, and there's absolutely nothing you can do. It's cold water. If this boat sinks, there's
That's
nobody
it.
there. It's also, you have no control.
Yeah, that's
I think
true.
you can swim, but
Yeah.
if it's 3,000 kilometers in either direction, it's just a long.
Yeah. And I think before we get too far into scary situations, we are going to end this episode. We are going to put the link for the website in the show notes for aeroTELEGRAPH. So if somebody wants to follow you, they can.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you very much for taking the time to be on Most Memorable Journeys, Stefan Eiselin.
Thank you very much for having me. It was very interesting. And if also one of your audience wants to ask something, they can find me easily.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Take care.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.